So the discussion about staged events and a staged Muslim false flag has been a regular topic of mine for some time, not just in recent months, but years ago. So we've seen a number of events lead to where we are right now. Many people question the official story of October 7th, 2023, in which Hamas has been accused of kidnapping and raping women from a rave in Israel. Many people wondering how they were able to do that with the amount of technology and security that Israel has. There's a lot of people saying that Israel has shot their own hostages, is willing to kill their own people in this war in Gaza. So there's a lot of focus right now on this pushback from South Africa. And there's another country as well. So this lawsuit in the international community. So I have some words to say about this. As Israel is being charged with genocide, and obviously the U.S. is a part of it. But I've warned for years about an event coming in which the whole world turns against the U.S. And many in power are trying to make certain events manifest to match biblical prophecy. Clyde Lewis used to talk about this years ago. And what this does is trigger people, they're highly biblical, into thinking that Jesus is going to return. And it leads to other psychological dispositions, including some people cheering on the things that are taking place, right? If they're convinced that Jesus is returning, that things that are horrible, then wars that are taking place, then destruction that is taking place, they may see that as good. And that is macabre. As they say, no man knows the day or the hour of his return. There's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to the church. But despite that, we can find very spiritual truths within the Bible and other holy books. But you won't hear that from the mainstream media. You won't hear that from many in the alternative media. And it's really, really sad. I would encourage you to think about a parallel reality, a parallel earth, where it's people just like us, humans just like us, but just a little bit more conscious, a little bit more cooperative in a galaxy far, far away. Because it is possible. But when you look at the modern day technology and what we've done with it, I'm not really impressed. So things are going to get worse before they get better. As you might know, that there's been an attack on Yemen tonight. It's not new for there to be an attack on Yemen, but this may be something significant. They've attacked the Houthis, which have been around for some time, at least 10 to 15 years. Some people say they're good guys. They're standing up for the for the people in Gaza. Many are cheering them on. Many people also call them terrorists, and they have been labeled terrorists by the Trump administration. They've also been fighting the Saudis for years, which have been using weapons from the U.S., provided by the U.S. And there's a famine in Yemen. Millions of children are starving. So it's not just in Iraq and Afghanistan. There are needless human beings that are starving in Yemen. And there's many Muslim countries that are standing by. This is also widely known. Powerful Muslim nations like Saudi Arabia and others that in many ways have links to Israel. So we can see how Israel, the United States, the UK, and Saudi Arabia all have like their own joint alliance, if you will, against Yemen. The Earth is a big place. It's a small planet. It's also a big place with a lot of countries, to be frank, and a lot of history and a lot of disinformation, especially now. China's playing a big role in disinformation campaigns. So does the U.S. One being involved in disinformation doesn't make the other one correct, right? There's many, many superstate nations, from the U.S. to Russia to China to others, that are involved in disinformation operations. But most of the humans have no idea. it is being said that China is supporting Hamas, is providing Hamas with the guns that are being used. They're also expanding facilities within the U.S. to provide additional ammunition in Ukraine. They're running out of ammunition and they need more. So multiple places in the U.S. and perhaps beyond are being set up to fill this demand. So here we have the situation developing in Yemen, in which they have been attacked over a dozen times. This group there. We're also seeing ISIS threatening the U.S., calling for attacks in the U.S. And here we have an attack on Iran that is blamed on ISIS a day after Iran blames it on the U.S. and Israel, saying death to America. And as this is taking place, of course, we have the movie out there that is out there on Netflix, Leave the World Behind. The Obamas have been involved in the production, and it features Iran dropping leaflets onto the cars in one scene that say in Arabic, "Death to America." Now I'm going to look up the name of this other movie that came out that has its own predictive programming. Dragon Day. Okay, so Dragon Day came out a couple of years ago, 2013. And other than Red Dawn, the remake, which actually features North Korea as the threat, because China influenced Hollywood to use CGI to change it to the North Korean threat. China did not want to be portrayed at that time as the enemy. But it appears that Dragon Day was produced in 2013. And while you don't physically see China, you do see the plight of a family that are in a mountain town on vacation. And they're there as China launches a massive cyber attack against the USA, forcing a former NSA engineer to fight to save his wife and daughter in the New World Order. New World Order, their words, not mine. But yet, in the mainstream world, in the so-called real world that we're in right now, people that talk about the New World Order are treated as mentally ill and unstable. And like they're racist. There are many racists, unfortunately, on this planet. So our movement has to contend with that, if you would consider it a movement. So do various other movements around the world. It's part of the human condition for humans to hate one another and to judge one another. And if the souls on this planet weren't so easily swayed towards the dark side, then I assume, in my opinion that I'm providing here, then they wouldn't be here on this planet. This planetary training range. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. But you know, a lot of people, the masses, they're going along with the program and they're manipulating, in a way, both sides. Okay? There has to be some sort of acknowledgement, however, on the part of human beings today with regards to what Israel is doing. And they may not be actual Nazis, but many people are saying that they're acting a lot like the Nazis. That doesn't make it right what Hamas is doing. And some would say that Hamas doesn't really represent the Palestinian people. So I'm not an expert on this, on the Hamas, so-called Hamas government. And of course, there's an argument for self-defense on both sides. So, like I said, you know, I just sense like an evil hand behind this. Using Twitter, using social media, through the war footage, people become traumatized by this and they can become radicalized. Not everybody develops compassion by witnessing war crimes or by hearing about war crimes. Many people become psychotic. And in Germany, for example, on a school, spray painted on the walls, it read, "Kill all Palestinians." Okay. So a lot of people don't realize the severity of this type of attitude. It's unfortunate. But when people are thinking like that, and attitudes like that are spreading, and you need to start asking deeper questions as to why thought forms like this can spread so quickly. Is it just human propaganda, or is this something else? But you got to realize, in this world in which some people may look like certain ethnicities, of which they're not, certain people could be harmed. Also, names. Okay, so if there's a name of a certain group, and someone else has a name that sounds like a certain group, there could be like an association, unfortunately. And people can discriminate based on national origin, ethnicity, name. And in various ways, I've dealt with this. I've dealt with this in Colorado, and my lifetime isn't over yet. I took some time off the internet for a reason. I've had various concerns about the future, some of which I've shared with you, some of which I have not. Okay, some things and some ways in which I view the future and concerns that I haven't exactly discussed. It's troubling to me the amount of things that I have called accurately. And there's a large number of things, long list in fact, of things that I would like to be wrong about. But again, this period that we're in, called the mid-2020s, is a period that I have discussed for a long, long time. At least as far back as 2012. And we can even look forward to the next solar cycle and see conflicts in that time period. And when I say look forward to, I don't necessarily mean with excitement. A lot of people are focused on 2030. Okay, there's no doubt in my mind that things are heading our way in the future. I'm often thinking that in the mainstream conspiracy movement, they want people thinking about 2030, so it takes us a little bit away from what's taking place right now. It almost seems like the World Economic Forum has almost positioned itself to be steering the direction of what the conspiracy movement is going to be talking about by pretty much putting it out in the open in the way that they have. So I find that to be interesting, that there's not any stealth involved in this. So it's almost as if they want people reacting in a certain way. Okay, I don't think that they would ever just put out, leading me to my next point, I don't think they would ever put out the truth as to what's going on and what the agenda is right out in front of you. So in many ways, they have been fermenting a false, farce, truth movement, kind of like false God or false gold. Think about some plastic painted with gold paint, and someone tried to, sell that into the street. Hey man, I got some gold for you. That ain't gold. It's a piece of plastic that you spray painted gold. There's a lot of gullible people out there, and for over 10 years, I've talked about the fake news within the conspiracy theory movement, but there's never really been any deep investigation that I'm aware of, from well-known conspiracy theorists. Really don't like that phrase or term. Let's call them what they are: researchers, authors, documentary filmmakers, deep thinkers of our day and age. How many of them? And if you have some names you want to drop, right? Let me know in the comment section. But the vast majority of the conspiracy theory movement is under the psychosis that everything evil is just from the left or from the Democrat side. Instead of taking acknowledgement that, for example, China, North Korea, Russia, there's a lot of dealings between these superstate nations and the GOP and Republicans. It's not just Biden. And so many people are brainwashed, unfortunately. People can be intelligent, but they can also be highly brainwashed. And it seems that the more educated one is in the world of higher education, some that is, depends on the school, the more likely they are to buy into some of this propaganda. But not in every case. And if, say, I had a different life growing up, perhaps I would have entered into higher education and did something else with my life. So I don't mean to knock that, but I've chosen this path for a reason, and I don't know what this is going to develop into. Okay, if I was reaching more people right now, folks, I would be creating more content on a regular basis, and there'd be a lot more work I would be putting into it. But I've already put in a lot of work already, going back at least to 2004. So now it's 2024, so I'm basically looking at 20 years since I've been involved in this, and a lot of the work that I have ahead of me is organizing my older content that has been since privated and shelved away. And I haven't brought back a lot of those older videos, like I said I was going to. But I'm still planning to do that in the future. But I'm human, like you're human, and it takes work to create content. And it's also draining on the energy to create content and to be connecting with others online. It doesn't always feel enriching. I appreciate those that have sent donations. Very few have. Very, very few have. But a few have recently. Patrick, Jerry. So I appreciate that. And I could be doing more to gain more support financially by putting myself out there on other platforms and other podcast platforms, such as Spotify. So I may do that in the future. I may be working to expand beyond YouTube, because YouTube is very much locked in this artificial reality to where we are now, to where the view counts are far, far smaller. And so that could be definitely straining on the content creator. Okay, I can speak to that myself, how stressful it is and distressing to create content, also lose that content. I'm bothered by the fact that other people have deleted my years and years of podcasts, but it's in the past. At least I have a lot of videos, a lot of important videos. So I'd like 2024 to be successful for myself and for those of you out there, for us to be prosperous and safe, for us to move further along in our attempts to prepare for what's to come, but also evolving spiritually this year, continuing to work on ourselves. And in my world and understanding, trying to make the world a better place is part of working on ourselves. Okay, that is part of it. And there's lots of ways in which people can help. Obviously, we can see lots of ways in which people are seeking to destroy, and ways in which people are coming undone. Yeah, there was another story out there that was speculating on the use of methamphetamines, I believe, in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Forces, in their initial onslaught after October 7th in this year of 2023. Do you remember what I told you about the eclipse, the effect of the eclipses? They can cause some people to almost act as if they are possessed, if not be possessed themselves, directly by something. So somebody could seem like they're on drugs or become so possessed during certain periods that they develop the willingness to take drugs and kill others. Both things that can invite in entities. Okay, so that report that I saw there, regarding the drug use. It caused me to think about that. Okay, so again, we're heading towards the April 2024 eclipse. By the way, remember to like these videos, and if you feel like throwing in your 2 cents, there is a comment section. But I was going to say, if you feel like sharing this content, feel free to do that. Although there's content that I want to create in the future that I definitely want to see people share in mass. And that would be documentary style reports with music, with images, with video, with voiceover. So right now I'm just making podcasts. But at some point in the future, I'd like to have a number of special reports that are made this year leading into next year. Yeah, it definitely would be nice for us to experience some positive things. But it's been very much a downhill slope within the alternative media, especially for myself. So I don't know what the future holds. But again, I'm making this recording tonight because I find this to be concerning, this attack happening tonight in Yemen. And then the Houthis, they're threatening to respond. And so we obviously have like a series of dominoes that seem to be prepositioned at this time. I'm going to read a couple things here from Twitter. Jeremy Scahill worked for Democracy Now! And is the author of a number of books. He has this to say about the bombing tonight. The U.S. repeatedly bombed Yemen during the 8 years of Obama's presidency with drone strikes and at times cruise missiles, cluster bombs, and then supported Saudi Arabia's scorched earth bombing of Yemen. Trump expanded support for Saudi bombing. Tonight, the U.S. is again bombing Yemen. Another point here, there have been days when the Palestinian death toll has been nearly 1,000 civilians, but it's these 9 soldiers that are worth being in the top headline in the New York crimes. Mean New York Times is what he means. And they have the headline here, Israel-Hamas war, 9 Israeli soldiers killed in a single day, underscoring war's cost. What that reminds me of is the many, many years in which they talk about the troops, U.S. troops that have been killed in Afghanistan, but they don't count the real number of Afghani civilians that they have killed, that they have murdered. And they have admitted that it's not their policy to count all the dead bodies. I mentioned to you recently also that I've seen people on Twitter that appear Middle Eastern or Afghani that also are pro-Chinese. So we don't really know, unless we really know someone, do we really know who's on the other side of the screen? And that can include people that are, for content creators, that can include people that are our supporters. I'm very on guard right now, and you can even say paranoid, but I'm very on guard right now with regards to many things that have happened to me. You've heard me talk a lot. You don't know everything that's happened to me behind the scenes. Just a little reminder, okay? You don't. I've told you a lot, but limitations, okay? And I often think about going deeper into things in the future, but you don't know everything. Now, I have long predicted a day when the international community brings up the crimes of the U.S. on screen, and including that of white supremacists in their march up to war against the U.S. I have long predicted this. So when I see this international condemnation, although it's not the whole world, I don't think Russians involved in the condemnation against the West or China, but it is South Africa, Venezuela, many Arab countries, Qatar. So there is this coalition being built. What I had in my mind for years was a futuristic event in which millions of people were taken out. Maybe even people in a Middle Eastern country or an Islamic country, possibly including a situation in which there's a mass internment of Muslims, perhaps American Muslims or Western Muslims, perhaps after a false flag, or unfortunately, possibly, a series of false flags, one after another, after another. ISIS has mysterious roots. Many people question what ISIS really is and why, of course, they've used this name ISIS, which has been used for years to depict, I believe, some sort of a Egyptian deity that has like a spiritual meaning. So it's been hijacked. We're dealing with the reality of names being hijacked by these groups that are accused of bringing terror to the West or threatening to bring terror to the West. There's, of course, the unfortunate problem as well, which I've shown to you, of people cheering this on. And that's the idea of people cheering on the fall of the U.S. because of the things that the U.S. has done. That is not spiritual. That is not the sign of an awake population. You know, people that just want to see America burn. Whether it's foreigners outside America that want America to burn, that's unconscious. It's also unconscious whether it comes from the left or the right. We see that at times. We see at times aspects of the left burning down certain cities. They're usually younger. And they don't seem to care about the times in which they target minority businesses. We see this in Portland, where Mexican and black businesses have been targeted by the left. And then we see the right also. And the unconscious actions of the left, and what some say is the anti-white rhetoric that's out there. We can even hear it in Alex Jones's mouth himself, although I won't watch him. And I've mentioned that before, that I won't watch him. But I remember things that he said. And I know that he's using talking points. He's programming his audience. So he says, the left says whites are so bad. The left says this, that, and the other. And he's basically creating a excuse for a counter response. And it's just crazy. They did this, you did this. It's gangbanger thinking. They did this, you retaliate. Well, what if the whole world's a stage and things are being staged to get people to react? You ever think about that? No. So there are people out there that are capable of deeper thought. They think they're intelligent. They think they're awake, but they're not awake. Now, I don't have insider information with regards to what's going on at the Miami Mall, but I don't believe the things that are coming out of the news when it comes to things regarding UFO sightings, and certainly this new phenomena of actual physical aliens being seen, either here in or in Las Vegas, which we saw months ago. Now, we saw so much pushing of that story of the supposed alien invasion in the backyard. On Twitter, on YouTube, on the New York Post. And then for years we've seen, so much promotion of the disclosure idea, or the idea of the government coming clean about UFOs flying near military craft or various airlines, right? So this is nothing new for people to be speculating as to why they're acting like they're about to tell the truth about aliens, which in no way they would. In no way is the current power structure of the world right now free of what I would call the unseen realms. What you want to call them, aliens, demons, whatever your religion happens to be, they're already running the show. So what are they doing with this Project Bluebeam? So there's been like a massive amount of people talking about Project Bluebeam in recent months. They've been talking about it for years. Nothing new here. We've seen this 10 years ago. We've seen videos from RT of crosses in the sky. That matches the description of Project Bluebeam very, very well. The idea of the return of Christ being faked. So as I said earlier, people think that certain events are taking place. Some people get excited because they become convinced that it means that the return of Christ is underway. I'm not saying that is going to happen or that that's not happening, but that the reasons that people come to that belief system seems to be for reasons that have more to do with things that are being positioned and manufactured in our world, in the media, on YouTube, certain videos that go viral. As I said before, a great deal of the conspiracy content on streaming video platforms has to do with UFOs and disclosure. Again, like fitting into this narrative of aspects of our government telling us the truth, or another slang word often used by Carrie Cassidy at Project Lies a lot is the white hats. It's the fallacy or the lie of good guys within our government that are counteracting things that are taking place. While it's possible there could be good guys either out there in the audience or out there in our government or world, they're not functioning in the way in which some of these conspiracy theorists have described them. But it would be great if there are good guys in our government that are trying to stop certain things from taking place. The unfortunate thing is the directive, the agenda is coming from a place that is beyond human, which is why it's very difficult to stop. It's very difficult to track. And I keep telling you, I honestly believe that we have to work to make the world a better place. And in doing so, we're trying to get off this planet. But I don't necessarily believe in the atypical ascension worldview. However, there's aspects of me that are open-minded with regards to that, because there are various religions that describe something like a ascension. And there's debate whether the rapture is biblical or not. I believe that I've heard the idea of the rapture came after the book of Revelations. And I'm certainly no expert on the Bible. What I'm trying to say is if something like an ascension is coming, where certain humans are able to evolve beyond this planet, that rise to a certain level of spirituality, then that would be great. And I would want to be a part of that. I would not want to remain here on Earth. The problem is that people automatically assume that people are waking up when they're not. Then people can neglect the real wake-up process that needs to take place. And so, yes, the things taking place against Palestine are obviously immoral. I don't even have to say that. I think it's crazy that would even need to be pointed out, but it needs to be pointed out, obviously. But that does not mean that all the Jews are to blame or are part of a massive conspiracy. Okay? And as I said, like Twitter and the mainstream media, they are televising this genocide. Let's go back to Twitter and read a few more things. People are noting how the genocide is being televised. And in doing so, they manufacture the angry response. You've also heard for years how terrorists are basically manufactured in a number of ways by the West and created, if not directly funded, through their lands being destroyed and people being pushed to a sense of complete devastation and total trauma. Not everybody that's traumatized in those experiences is going to turn to the other cheek. Humans are humans. Humans are, to a certain degree, animals. Intelligent, spiritual animals with the potential for some to be spiritual. Not all are spiritual, but animals nonetheless. So the reality is many animals are going to fight back. As they're saying with regards to Israel, Israel has a right to self-defense. People keep hearing these things drummed into their mind. I'm not saying Israel doesn't have a right to self-defense, but people are going to hear this and well, we have a right to self-defense too. It makes sense. It's logical if one has the right to self-defense that the other has a right to self-defense. And some other points have been sent to me by somebody regarding the protests in Portland. Okay, I'm going to go over a few of those here. Okay, so what I'm saying is people should expose what Israel's doing and stand with Palestine without going on an anti-Jew tirade. Okay, there's a difference between Zionism and the Jews. And there's a way people can do that without doing stupid shit in the streets. And a lot of people in Portland succumb to a lot of highly narcissistic, abusive, psychotic property destruction of people that have nothing to do with the decisions that are being made. The words here that are being used by this person: total idiocracy, just a pathetic spectacle that reeks, look at me, more than stop the war in Gaza. The common man and woman are just stupid, dumb animals. Many protesters have a anger addiction and have a narcissistic need to be in the spotlight more than an addiction to social justice or anything they claim to be about. It was a well curated group of total idiots with fake personas at the airport, dependent on validation. I think he's talking about the attempts to shut down the road there. More bad ideas reinforced by the herd. They just need social media validation, and they'll get it. And they'll get it. As we see many people putting Palestine, the flag of Palestine, on their profile icon. But again, I'm saying to you, what about other countries? So, what's wrong is the fact that people are only responding because society is saying it's okay to. Okay, it's almost hypocritical. And a lot of the protesting tactics are just causing domestic problems. And China and Russia both have a history of manipulating both the left and the right when it suits them. They've used Facebook, they've used other platforms, they've used TikTok, and the American people don't really understand this. Maybe they will in the future. The conspiracy theorists really don't understand it. They live in their own little cartoon world, in a way, a lot of the mainstream ones, where it's just a left-wing, blood-drinking, Epstein list conspiracy where Trump is their Lord and Savior. And yet Trump has his own ties to China. A company tied to the Chinese government rents office space in Trump Tower. He has other ties to China. Okay, other Republicans have ties to China. It's not just Hunter and Joe Biden. Going back to this commentary that this person's providing, they live in the protesters, that is, the mentalistic world that exists in their heads. They suffer from a sort of main character syndrome, where they want to be seen as a main character to get validation, that they're somehow important in a historical context or affecting some sort of change for the better when they aren't. Narcissism and stupidity are the fuel of modern society. Okay, and this is somebody that spent a lot of time filming protests in Portland, Oregon, who was in fact targeted himself at one point for filming, and certain people that he talked to. So that's why he's not doing that anymore. He talks about even being targeted himself by people in the trans community who themselves act like victims, but in some cases victimize and slander others. You know, and it's just interesting. Everything was about the Jews, and anti-Semitism. And some of the same protesters are now, playing on the other side of the spectrum. And again, what is happening to the Palestinians is wrong. It's wrong, the 30,000, 40,000 dead. But the way in which people are responding to this and sharing on Hamas and other groups that are getting involved, like the groups in Yemen, and developing certain anti-U.S. sentiments. It's like you can be against what the U.S. is doing without hating your own government. And that's what they've basically orchestrated with the help of our own media. And so in so many ways, right, the phrase that I've used for years, haven't said it in a while, America being destroyed by design. There are so many examples of this. So we're really dealing with the alien invasion of consciousness. That's where it's taking place. And it's coming through the unseen realms, that which you cannot measure or record. The physical world is the world of man. And so the aliens in reality create a great number of disturbances on our planet in the human world, covertly. But they are manufacturing this alien threat per se not only in the UFOs, but these sightings, and causing certain things to trend, with certain people going on to the internet and saying that they're seeing portals opening up in the mall and sounding highly convincing to the people that are watching. This, of course, in the era of the deepfake. And then, of course, you have the reality of SpaceX. A couple things to say on that. There could be the reality that SpaceX is being used as a cover for other programs or other UFOs. So they can say that it's SpaceX, but it's not really SpaceX. It's something else. But there is a rise in people thinking that they're seeing UFOs and people looking externally at lights in the sky, at signs of an alien invasion, since we've seen the expansion of SpaceX in recent years. There's also other examples. I talked to you about Trout Lake, Washington, James Gillen's place. There's other people out there that do think that the man is highly in tune to the time of the satellite passovers. And there are more satellites than ever that are out in space, from the Chinese, from the North Koreans, from the Iranians, from the Russians, from the Europeans, from the Americans. More satellites in space than ever before. And I've seen an increase in these, right? So I am highly ever of the position nowadays when I see something unusual in the sky that I'm actually seeing something that's alien. And while I don't believe necessarily in these various reports, and there are many, not just the one in Vegas or the Miami Mall, but in New York as well, of people seeing 8 foot, 10 feet tall aliens. While I don't necessarily buy into that, the idea of spiritual beings invading the planet during certain periods, including when there are certain eclipses or solar flares, unseen, invisible aliens, if you will, or beings or spirits, invading the human world, I think that we're experiencing that, unfortunately. Now, they are feeding off of a lot of our misery and our pain and our suffering. And there are periods in our world in which there are sacrifices that seem to be demanded to some, by some sort of a dark entity that's ruling over us, or some of the spirits that are here. And those spirits are there manipulating people in power. And the people in power are in control of the red button. And we may very well be dealing with a mass depopulation situation in the future. Some people say that the good aliens, the Pleiadians, call them what you will, they're going to stand in the face of that. They're going to stop that. And for lots of reasons, I'm not convinced. Again, I'm seeing an increase in people getting into the dark side of the New Age movement, right? So I think that a lot of things that I've been saying about people worshiping the Galactic Federation of Light and the Pleiadians and things of that nature, I've been warning you about this for years. Okay, so I saw a commercial, probably from Gaia TV, which is talking about the Galactic Federation Council. And unfortunately, this is the stuff that, frankly, just leads people towards mental illness. And thinking that they're going to be saved by some invisible council out there in the sky. So, I don't recognize this planet as my home, because the humans that have incarnated into this particular time and place haven't shown themselves to be all that intelligent or caring, loving or intuitive. They're lacking that. And it seems that the things that I'm conscious of or aware of, this modern day and age doesn't really have places for me in it. To share what I know and to work with others. And if I was working with a team of 10 people, things would be a lot different, right? Things could be different, folks. 2024 with a team of people could be a year in which 4 or 5 documentaries are made of high quality that warn about the upcoming war between the superstate nations. Even if one doesn't subscribe to the idea that China may invade America, what is a fact is that multiple superstate nations have conspired together for a number of years to arm each other to the teeth and to, at the same time, which confuses the masses, become very much intertwined and interdependent on each other. So think the US and China, and the US and Russia, think the International Space Station, right? It really is a mystery that they have prepared for war for so many years, and for so many years have made this point, and that for so many years they become so intertwined and interdependent. Why is that? Okay. Nobody really asks, and nobody really knows. Okay. There's lots of documentaries. Yeah, if the world was really waking up, there's lots of documentaries that should then, in theory, be shown on Tubi or Netflix. Where is there a documentary that talks about this new Cold War and private corporations that are making a lot of money selling weapons around the world, profiting off of people's death? And it's there's really a level above the weapons dealers, the international weapons dealers. And I'm sure a lot of those people are truly evil people. Now I'm thinking Al Pacino from Devil's Advocate, the devil incarnate in human form, making a killing off of the suffering and in some cases the genocide of others. And I'm really shocked that also there's so many Muslim communities that are so trusting of Facebook as a primary way to communicate when Facebook has sold them out so many times in the past, has worked with so many radical groups in Myanmar, in India, and many places around around the world. I'm almost finished reading Surveillance State, and then I'm going to try to go over it again and pull out the basic cliff notes. Right, I'm going to read in a future recording the final chapters of Surveillance State. I have another book that I checked out. I looked up Uyghurs, the word Uyghurs at the library, and I found a book by a woman that survived the quote re-education camps, also known as concentration camps, there in China. So we'll see what happens in the next few hours, what the response is going to be. But yeah, of course, we can be looking at the reality of false flags with the group there, the Houthis there in Yemen, saying that they're going to retaliate after being struck. Okay. So there's a lot more that I can share with you regarding this person's perspectives on Portland and the hypocrisy of a lot of the protesters there, because he's having more direct dealings with them than I am. A couple other points that I'm going to share. I believe Israel is run by evil people who are controlling America. This is from Jack Shields. I also believe the vast majority of Jews are good people. It's also important to not allow our hatred for Israel and organizations like the ADL to turn into hate for an entire race. And so it's also like those that control Israel for years are engaged in actions that are going to be destructive for the Israeli people. So I was even discussing this in podcasts 10 years ago, hypothesizing that they are in power simply to cause destruction of Israel, to fulfill biblical prophecy, because people see the potential for Israel being attacked, and then it fits into their biblical prophecy worldview. So when they see this happening, they assume other things are taking place. It then influences their behavior and how they view reality and what's coming next. Again, they're manufacturing events here on this planet to make things appear that it is fitting a particular script. And as people respond to that and they fall into this mentality, some are easier to control. Sure, some become more spiritual with certain religious views and ideas. Many people, however, unfortunately, with many religions, Christianity, Islam, others, can become radicalized. The masses easily fall into programming, regardless of their race or religion. This is what I'm saying to you. This is what we're dealing with. This is the global conspiracy. Let's hear now from Richard Medhurst. I believe he's a commentator or was for Press TV, which is out of Iran. Jews or anyone else who leave their country to go to join the Israeli occupation forces and slaughter people in Gaza are no different than foreign fighters who go to join ISIS. If they were Muslim, none would hesitate to prosecute them for war crimes or imprison them on return. Another person, Max Blumenthal, okay, another well-known figure, said that these teenage girls, those that are reported to have been abducted by Hamas, were active duty soldiers guarding the Gaza prison camp and operating the remote controlled machine gun system on the prison walls. Meanwhile, Israel has killed 136 UN staff members in Gaza and proudly bombs UN schools. The other thing that's taking place here is people are being desensitized to violence. People like myself, I'm choosing to not look at all the violent footage, being that I've looked at violent footage my whole life. When it comes to Afghanistan, Iraq, places like that, violence in America, a lot of violent videos at the turn of this year I saw on Twitter, which disturbed me, has an effect on the psyche, seeing our fellow brothers and sisters becoming zombies. Whether it's caused by racism or people just becoming violent to be violent. It's happening. And there's a lot of God's children here on this planet that are being affected by this, right? So we need to remember that. I don't subscribe to any ideology that everybody serving God is going to be protected. God works in mysterious ways. There's a lot of God's people that are being taken out by the evil of this world at this time. Okay. So yeah, large number of governments in this charge against Israel of genocide. We have other allegations of young girls being stripped naked by soldiers with no regard for human dignity. So yeah, I don't see China or Russia on the list of countries that are supporting South Africa. And so yeah, as one commentator puts it, it speaks volumes on how the governments of these countries view the native Palestinian people in the Middle East. As far as Islamophobia is concerned, it is reported to have gone up 172%. This is something that I saw coming as far back as the summer, although I predicted for a number of years, right? For those of you that are my longer term listeners and viewers, you know how long I've been talking about the switch programming and anti-Themism. And so we are seeing it. Here's somebody here talking about their brother and cousins who are Palestinian Americans being pulled off the airplane and held by airport security and police in Minneapolis on their way home from a wedding because a woman heard them speaking Arabic and English. They were wearing Palestinian necklaces, and she made a complaint. Security took several other Arabic-speaking and Muslim passengers off the plane for questioning and held them, preventing them from leaving as well. They were all racially profiled and treated as suspect. And there's another high-profile story of a teacher somewhere threatening to behead a Muslim student. Okay, and it was about a month ago that a 6-year-old boy was killed by a landlord. So there's a lot of attacks on both Jews and Muslims and other groups in this country, right? But there's a lot of articles, right? There's a lot of articles that are talking about that. There's also footage of a neo-Nazi group in Italy, right? Performing their Seek Hell. That is in the news. Okay, I noted that when the drag shows were taking place, and there was a lot of news about it, and a lot of pushback for good reason, It also brought out certain Nazi groups, and the names of some of those groups, when I looked them up on Google, Google would proudly display their BitChute channel. So that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand. When groups get out there and they create channels to recruit, all people need to know is their name through either news reporting or things of the like. And through those mechanisms, people can search out by knowing their name on the internet where those groups happen to be. And so here we see Google, even though they've been censoring conspiracy theorists and censoring truthers and deleting channels, right? Here is Google linking to this group, this Nazi group, the name of which I'm not going to mention here, on page 1 of the search results on Google. And so there are people that really just don't understand this conspiracy. People that are conspiracy theorists that are brainwashed into thinking that it's solely a SJW, left-wing snowflake algorithm, right? They need to come to terms that things like this are actually taking place. That there are multiple algorithms at place on the internet right now that are fueling various forms of radical thinking. That there are multiple groups around the world that have been radicalized, groups and subgroups, to the hundreds to thousands. And they're all being guided and directed by social media. And they're all thinking that the social media is helping them as they trust in these websites, but they don't understand how they're being manipulated in so many ways by this technology. By being able to fall into a group so easily, many can be so easily manipulated. It's when you go outside the box of identifying with the tribe, in my opinion, that you can be free of being easily boxed in to a particular defensive psychological state of being, and then thinking that you have to respond a particular way to a perceived threat to your group. It's like we're many things. We're more than men. We're more than Americans. We're more than humans. But as long as humans are conditioned to think that they're these finite little boxes, then that's all they're going to be. And these people that are being conditioned to think that they're nothing more than these little definitions and terms, they will fight to the death to defend what they think is their honor, when they believe that their honor has been taken, when they believe that they have been disrespected. And they are encouraged by their own echo chamber that they have to fight this other group. And this is basically happening on so many different levels, in so many different languages. Anyhow, we'll wake up tomorrow and we will see what is in the news. But you don't want to go crazy with it. If you're able to get prepared and get some extra food and fill up your water containers and things of that nature. There's many, many people out there that are convinced that this year is the year that we're going to see major things hit the fan. And of course, as we approach the April 2024 eclipse, they have a movie coming out called Civil War. Somebody left that info in the comments, right? They're releasing a movie called Civil War, right? As people are thinking and obsessing on Civil War in the election year of 2024, right as we pass the April eclipse. We'll see you in the next video.